Hi everyone, I'm Vicki Stark, the author of Runaway Husbands, and I'm so happy to get a chance to talk with you tonight. Um, like we have every Wednesday, we have so many great questions. Um, and tonight I'm focusing on one aspect that is a real fundamental aspect of the whole wife abandonment syndrome experience, and that's the other woman. Now I know that not everyone has another the other woman in their story. Not every husband leaves for another woman, but the vast majority do. And even if you don't know about another woman, it's possible that there might be somebody out there in the wings. So tonight we have three questions that really focus on this issue of the other woman, and hopefully it will shed some light for you about who this person, this mythical person is, how you can stop thinking about her and obsessing about her and him, and how to move on in spite of the fact that your husband of however long it's been has left you to be with somebody else. So the first question um, is from Anonymous, and she writes, "It's been 6 months since D-Day, and one of the things that still haunts me is the anger I have towards the other woman. She knew he was married, and she knew there were children involved. She was married as well with children, so the two of them broke up two families. How can he want to be with somebody who has proven herself to be so completely and utterly selfish? There must be some part of my runaway husband that knows that the person he left me for isn't a good person." So it's an interesting question, and I've heard similar questions throughout the years. And the fundamental aspect of this question is the belief that what your husband did and what the other woman did was sensible and thought out and carefully planned and acting in the best interest of themselves. Well, obviously of the best interest of themselves, but really thinking about the whole landscape and how it would affect everybody. We have to recognize, and I'm a therapist, and so sometimes people come into my office, I don't know what their topic is, and so throughout the years, many times I've worked with women who are the other woman, and they're coming to talk to me because their heart is broken that he didn't leave his wife, and they're trying to get him to leave his wife, and so I've definitely got the inside scoop as to what's going on with this woman, and very often, although it looks as though she really doesn't care, very often they actually do feel guilty, and they do go through some conflict, but they feel like they can't stop themselves. One of the things that's very common is that the husband tells the other woman, whomever she is, whether she has a family and children or not, he tells the other woman that his marriage is on the rocks, that it's really almost over, that the wife knows that he's planning to leave. In sort of in the same way he's lying to you, he lies to her because he wants it to continue. So there are many cases where the other woman has been given this information that the marriage is teetering, in the last gasp, and that they're already thinking of leaving, and that the wife knows, and there's a lot of cases like that where the other woman is really given a misinformation and told things that really aren't true. But this question she asks, some part of my husband must know that the person he left me for isn't a good person, and trust me, neither of them are thinking or assessing, is this a good person or not? They're swept up in this thing that's, like the train has already left the station and it's barreling down the track, and they just are like wanting to be with each other, and they're really not thinking it through. And even if they stop for a moment to think it through, some kind of internal need to be together is so powerful that people sweep aside any reservations that they have. You may remember, if it ever happened to you, if you ever fell in love with either your ex-husband or a boyfriend back when you were 17, and you knew that he wasn't good for you. You knew that he was with a bad crowd or something, but you really didn't care because you so much wanted to be with that person. And very often in affairs, they're acting on the emotional side of things, and the rational side is very distant. Like nobody's really thinking about that. And also, that not everybody is mature, adult, evolved. People do things that are just emotional because they feel like they want to do it. And they justify it to themselves in the same way your husband, your ex-husband, justified it to himself. So I don't think that he was really caring whether the person he left you for is a good person. He only cares that they're having this fling or this relationship, however long it's going to be in this state, and it's not a logical way of thinking. All right, next question is from Anna, and she says, it's been 10 months since my husband left me for his affair partner, who was, by the way, my next door neighbor. That hurts. I've been pretty much no contact with him for 5 months, but I can't stop thinking about whether he's happier with her. How do I stop fantasizing about their life? I constantly picture them together doing all the things I used to do with my husband. It's all consuming and it's driving me crazy. And a lot of people go through this phase. 10 months, that sounds about, you're still in the midst of it. And this is, part of the recovery from wife abandonment syndrome requires you to do a lot of work on yourself. And in the book, in Runaway Husbands, I have a chapter that gives you certain tips and tricks. And they're really about mind control. It's really about using certain techniques so that you can recognize that, I'm obsessing again. I'm thinking about them. And then, perhaps using a technique like a thought replacement. When you're thinking about them, then instead prepare for yourself a memory or a thought about something beautiful that makes you feel good and positive. I myself use a time that I was in St. Martin on vacation, and I was on this absolutely perfect beach on a perfect day, and the sea was gorgeous. And when I'm stressed or anxious, I will take myself back to the beach. So you need to start training your thinking so that you don't let yourself follow down that path. And it means becoming aware when you're doing it and saying to yourself, come on, Vicki, cut it out. Stop thinking about that. Do something else, because he is no longer a part of your life and you're only continuing to hurt yourself. So I know this is a huge issue for people who, 10 months or even 10 years, are still having trouble, clearing the cache of their thoughts about him and her, and feeling as though they've moved on and they're living the life that should have been your life. But you need to self-discipline. You need to work on yourself to be able to turn your focus from the past to the future. Turn your focus onto what you're going to do with your one wild and precious life, like Mary Oliver, the poet, suggested. And even if it's a small thing, like I've heard some people planting flowers, this week 2 people told me they were planting flowers. Even if it's a small thing, but a beautiful thing that brings you peace, you have to encourage yourself, stop thinking about it and let it go. Just let it drift away into the past. He's not your husband anymore. He's not intricately involved in your life. She never was. And they're just 2 other people that you're going to more and more have less and less to do with. Okay, so our final question is from Jessica, also about the other woman. And she says, how do you get over the feeling of being abandoned and replaced? And how do you not let it affect your self-esteem? I feel like it's knocked my confidence down to an all-time low, and it's affecting my work and my personal life. So yeah, of course. I mean, first of all, I have to say that not everybody um, has the same reaction of their self-esteem being taken, such a knock. Some people see it the other way. They feel like I'm okay, but I've really lost respect for him. So I think for some women, you can position yourself as sort of an innocent bystander to some drama that's going on inside of him, and you're the collateral damage to this thing that's going on inside of him. You're the same woman he was married to for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and you seem fine to him for the first 25 years. So we have to accept the fact that we're not perfect. Of course, sometimes we're annoying or critical or talk too much or don't talk enough, or, he's going to have complaints about us the same way we have complaints about them. But that doesn't mean that he has the right to leave in the way that he did, and that it's appropriate for him to be so, in many cases, brutal and heartless. So I really hope that you can rebuild your self esteem. Yes, he did leave you, and yes, you have been replaced, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like everything in life, there are pluses and minuses. And I know at this point, not too long after your husband has left, that your focus is very much on all the things that you're losing. But I want you to start thinking about some of the things that you're gaining. Even if it's hard to locate them, I want you to start looking under the rock and seeing what things you're gaining. But the most important thing is that you're going to be able to practice self-compassion and self-love. And you have to do that every day. You have to be able to appreciate who you are and love yourself. Good and bad. With everything that you have, there's a wonderful woman in there. And you really need to be able to let yourself love her. Don't let him define you. You get to define you. He doesn't get to define you anymore. So that's us for tonight. Wishing you all the best. Stay well, stay safe, and sending everybody lots of love.